Welcome to the Breaking Views. I'm Theresa Fessenstein, here with my co-host Anthony Onesto. We've spent our careers in HR and people leadership, and each week we pull apart what's breaking in the news and talk about what it actually means for the teams doing the work. We're so happy you're here. Trying a new tool, always thinking about the best thing for the workplace. Welcome to Breaking Views, our bi-weekly conversation about things in the news that impact HR, AI, all sorts of things, the future of work, with my good friend Anthony Onesto. Hello, Anthony. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. It is about 70 degrees and sunny. We are in full springtime here in New York. Well, I guess it's a little touch of summer in New York, but I absolutely love it. So nice to go outside, get the sun. Yeah, I'm excited. Not the city proper. No reason to be in subways at 70 degrees and smelling all that good New York. It's all good. I like being in the country.
Well, this week, it's been in the 90s in the city. So, but it's also still too early. Like the frost hasn't depleted enough for the scent to actually come out in full swing. There's always that first warm weekend of the spring that is the best time to be in New York City, Chicago, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm in the suburbs too, so that we don't have that, but we have had our windows open all week, and I'm excited for
nice.
I'm excited for 70s, 80s. It's nice.
Yes, it's my favorite that one day we get of spring now. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, totally agree. So what's in your news feed today?
Yeah, so much going on today. It actually shifted from yesterday. I actually was looking at it yesterday, and the first thing that was in my feed yesterday is in an AI market, here are the jobs college grads are landing, right? So listen, if we don't say AI, the gods and the robots will come after us. So there you go. AI has been said. I think people are sick of it. I think we talked about this last time, but like it transformed people like, enough with AI. But it's interesting to see, this thing that we found out when talking about Gen Z specifically is this disgust around AI, right? And it's so funny. Like I was talking to a bunch of people, customers, prospects, just generally networking with folks and just getting an understanding of their maturity around where they are. And there are edge cases where folks are, and this more than everybody, you're doing training, you're talking to folks too. Most folks are not even started. Like they're just getting ChatGPT licenses, things like that. And then there are a few edge cases that are really diving into AI. So there's still an incredible white space here around AI, but there's already backlash. Like you see this generation that's Gen Z that is anti-AI. And someone's asked me, like, why do you think that's the case? I'm like, every headline is jobs are being eliminated and these folks are coming into the workforce. So, like I have a cartoon. I've been starting to think about pushing out cartoons, AI generated, of course, because I don't draw, but a bunch of cartoons around this messaging. And I have one where it's, a boss saying, hey, employee, why aren't you, using AI? And the employee's reading a newspaper, which is ironic because no one reads newspapers anymore. But on the headline, it goes, Acme Co., fires 50% of their staff. And it's like this, like, of course, why people fight, flight, or freeze, neuroscience. Like every headline is my job is getting eliminated to AI. And you're like, why aren't you using AI? Because I'm giving my job away. Like what, like this just wild what's happening. And then you read about Allbirds, like the shoe company. I have Allbirds. I loved Allbirds, and they're becoming an AI company. I'm like, so
I've seen many good memes about that and like good videos of like
crazy. I just changed myself. I'm now an AI. I'm worth $1 billion. Anthony.ai is what you're looking at today.
It's hard for me to say everybody's AI when I do have it right behind me, but I think
that's your company. Like, that you started that.
But I think there's so much to unpack in what you just said, and thinking about my own students. I just got off of 2 calls. I teach I'm an adjunct. I teach AI in business and HR management. For those that don't know, I just had 2 like office hours with students, and they're 2 brilliant women who are leaning into AI in a really magical way. And they're trying to figure out, like, I can't imagine being a student getting ready to graduate college, which is why I shared that article with all of my students that you shared with me before about, the roles of the future grads in AI in an AI market. What are the jobs that grads are landing? And I actually put it up here as well. I have it pulled up on my own screen, which maybe I'll figure out a real fancy way to show it in the video.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, right. But I just think it's very much a difficult space. I think where the first piece of your message around it's our conversation and our headlines are saturated with AI. And from the context of, we were just both at Transform, there doesn't seem to be a middle ground. It's like, when I started People Power AI in 2023, early 23, I'm 3 years in now. There was very little, with the exception of like if you were looking for conversation about AI, right? It was starting to percolate, it was starting to come up. Now, and by the way, at Transform in 2023, which I attended, I couldn't get on the stage. There was no stage talking about AI. So I had my own thing in a portico in the basement. Like, I created my own thing. Now, fast forward two years, really in the process, or 3 years, and there was almost no session that didn't have AI. So it's like all or nothing. And there's no middle ground of like, where's the content around managing grief and loss in a unique way for employees? Where was the conversation about 51% of our population are female that are, and a huge proportion of those are getting ready to go through or in menopause? How do we support that team?
Well, it could be like how AI can support women in menopause. No, we can.
But that wasn't even there. That would have been something I would have been excited about. And I think there is this. There's an interesting dynamic around the conversation, and then at the same time, to your point, the 40% of our population, like, where is the expectation of any level of loyalty to a workplace now? There's no
Zero
in the news.
Snap just announced they're laying off people because of AI. Like, again, you're a CEO. It's so frustrating to me because there, and again, this is, and I understand there's short-term thinking in here, and that's because the structure of the way everyone is incentivized these days, especially if you're a public company, is short-term gains. So Snap lays off people, stock pops, they win, right? The executives win, whoever has stock ownership there wins, the CEO wins, the board wins, whatever. But at the end of the day, and I have another cartoon that's coming out, or I think maybe I posted it. No, I did post it recently, was this is a two-sided marketplace. So when you fire all the people, by the way, all these agents that you're creating, and there's so much like, hey, I've eliminated my entire, group of employees, and now I have AI agents that support me. And it's like, okay, great. None of those agents consume. They do not buy shit. And so now, in the long term, if no one's buying shit because no one's working, and I'm like beating this drum, I'm like, stop glorifying this. Stop listen, I get it. You want to reduce headcount, and it's a business objective.
Do you think it's about who's doing the glorification? Because I don't think it's.
It's a communication teams. Like Snap doesn't just go, hey, we fired people. You've run RIFs before, reductions in forces.
Yep.
There's a communication method, especially, when you're a company of large size, you also have WARN requirements. So you do have to publicly let people know that you're firing people. So there are legal requirements, but you can just say, hey, we're laying off people. You don't have to say we're laying off people because of AI. And listen, the media loves that story. And again, ironically, if you're eliminating people, I mean, media is driven by people, at least at this point. it's, there are, like you see Block, that, like the Dorsey being like, yeah, we're laying off people and it's AI, like that. Whether I feel like it's glorified, maybe the media is doing a little bit of that, but you could just be like, hey, we're laying off people. You don't have to say
Well,
it's because of AI.
no, because, well, we talked about this last time, Anthony, and I think the question that we have to ask is, number one, is it really about AI, or is it really about overhiring and us not wanting to admit that we've been paying for 4 years inflated salaries for people that we really didn't need because we were in a competitive market then and we're afraid we wouldn't have the manpower or human power to
Yeah.
maintain our business, and now we're just at this place where it's a convenient excuse, which I think
Is
is
it?
for many of them, because I can tell you there are, and you know this, there are so many examples of companies over the past 3 years that have said, hey, we're going to move to just AI customer service, and something tragic happens and all of a sudden we're hiring people again because there's nobody in the
Right.
company that understands
But isn't it like
delivery.
a mass? Isn't that a wild mismanagement of a company? So why aren't we like, okay, and maybe you're right. Maybe they're using the cover of AI. One, it gives them credit that, the message to the market is like, hey, we're going AI, and like Allbirds going to allbirds.ai, their value pops. Maybe that is a thing and they're using it as air cover, and it gets a dual benefit. It also it hides the fact that this company that you overhired on was mismanaged. So where's the accountability? And that stems from boards to CEOs. Like the HR people are following the instructions of the leadership, right? Hey, we need to hire a ton of people. Like, you mismanage this company, you should be fired. Like, if I mismanage to the material nature that we're talking about, like you take 10%, 20% of staff. So you're telling me we overhired by 20%, and you're still the CEO of the company? Like, isn't that gross mismanagement in my view?
Take Square, absolutely right. Square 40% gone, or Block 40% gone. Like, that is almost, I wonder if there's a piece of that conversation that was like sweet relief. If we didn't have AI as the reasoning, what would the conversation be? Because if I'm a CEO, I'm thinking of self-preservation. I'm looking at our numbers, I'm looking at our business, and I'm also looking at the conversation that's happening that says AI agents can do this, AI agents can do that. And I'm going to go to my board and say, hey, all these valuable people that we hired really support the business. However, now things have changed. So we can use this as it's self-preservation. I don't think most people that have any sense of self-preservation are going to stand up and say, it was my fault, I did it, we overhired, and I'm going to go ahead and leave or sacrifice myself for the betterment of the business because clearly I'm not the right
Right.
person to run this ship. Like, it's
I
just,
think, yeah, I mean, I don't see that happening. And it's interesting, like all this AI replacement, like how many AI agents for CEOs can we, like, if you think about an incredible opportunity to save money, it's, at the CEO level, like, can't we have AI agents replacing CEOs? Why isn't that being discussed? Right. So, and I'm not suggesting that well, yeah, I am suggesting that. It just, like, listen, the secret here is that a lot of these, especially with Block, and I know for certain because I literally just Googled it, they have dual class shareholders. So these folks can't leave. It's almost like the, Bronx Tale when the bikers go into the bar, the mafia bar, and they're like making, disruption, and they lock the door, and it's like, no, you can't leave. In a different way, like, these folks will never, Zuckerberg, same thing. Like, they have these dual class share structures where they have more power than the board. So even if they grossly mismanage these companies, it's hard to really, really, really exit them. So it's just interesting to me, like, and outside of that structure where that doesn't happen, that's gross mismanagement of a company even from a financial perspective. And the thing I've been thinking about a lot, we're seeing a lot of AI layoffs in the mostly in the information services sector, right? Like what the digital work that you and I usually come from. Not so much in manufacturing just yet, but I think that will be an evolution at some point with robotics. We're already seeing with Amazon. Where are the unions? Like where, like at what point? Now we're still record unemployment, so that's not a driver just yet, and we're starting to see maybe job openings actually, or actually jobless claims decrease, which is one of the headlines here. So there isn't this mass layoff and this mass unemployment, and maybe it has to get to that. But where are the unions? Like, why? If I was a union president, I'd be going into tech companies and I'd be like, "Hey, you folks are getting screwed here. Like, you're basically digitizing all your work, training all these agents to take your jobs. Like, where are the unions on any of this? Like, none. I don't know. It's just weird to me. I've been thinking a lot about that lately as a balance of power, frankly.
Yeah, well, it goes back to that like all or nothing mentality, right? Like this, we're either going to do a full, whether it's a conference or it's a company doing a full sweep where there's not a sense of, well, let me qualify. I think probably, Anthony, the stories that we're talking about are the exception, not the rule. Like if you take 10 companies that have
Good
announced
point.
XYZ out of the billions of companies out there, most companies are probably taking a more measured, balanced approach, more conservative in terms of sweeping changes. And those maybe there are the companies that don't have some, huge private equity or VC managing them and pushing them for whatever huge returns they're being valued at, right? Like there's a lot of that in the volatile, you know, SaaS space, right?
Right.
One of the things I want to pivot, if we can talk about something else. One of
Yes.
our mutual great friends, Amanda Halley, posted something today. I'm going to share it with the screen because I'm going to get
Oh
fancy
boy.
here,
Drum roll.
right? Drum roll. I don't even know if you can see it. Can you see it?
I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So today, or she posted this today, that LinkedIn News shared this update, speaking of college grads and new roles, that number 5, which has really never been on this list before, is
Hmm.
HR operations specialist as top roles for new grads. I'm curious what your take on that is. And as a individual working within a company that is focused on technology and growth, does this align at all with what you're seeing, or where is your current company 15.5? What is their hiring strategy around technology, HR? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk more from a customer perspective on this. It's interesting. Like, I am surprised, and well, actually, I'm not. Well, the recruiting one is a surprise to me, and you actually have great pushback there, and I appreciate the pushback because it could be this technological or technology or SaaS echo chamber that I'm sitting in, that I'm getting fed all of this information. And you're right, there are, the U.S. comprises of mostly sort of mid or small businesses. Like that's the majority of what really powers our economy, and you're not seeing a lot of that. The AI disruption, and I think again could be an opportunity there to really help those smaller companies. But you're absolutely right. This might be just an echo chamber of what I'm seeing consistently, and whether it's Block or Snap, both technology companies. So you're onto something there. That like, hey, let's take a breather here, Anthony. Step back, stop unionizing. I'm already picketing. I'm going to go picket in front of my own house. Like, get rid
Oh
of this
my
guy.
God,
No.
the HR leader of 20 years ago in my head is just like frizzling away with like, no unions. Now
What's a picket?
my mindset
What's
is
a
very
picket?
different today.
Yeah. I
Protections
remember,
that, but they're protections we didn't necessarily, I mean, think about that transformation, right? As a professor of HR management, where employees needed the protections of an organization because the employers themselves didn't find it commercially viable to support their employees. And then we went into an age of, now we're going to support the future retirement funds through pensions, and we're going to then it grew, and now we're doing a lot more for the health and wellness of our employees. We're protecting them more. And it just feels like in some ways, that what I came into the workforce with was an expectation, not necessarily that I was going to stay with the same company. My dad worked for General Motors his whole life, that I was
Yeah.
going to have that same experience, but that no matter where I went, there was a level of transference of those protections. So I could take that retirement and push that into another company, and that next company, maybe they gave me better benefits, better time off, more balance. And now it's just like this, let's work harder. And by the way, there's absolutely no fucking security in a job anymore. I was just talking to
No.
you about the fact that I have this perspective that in the next 5 years, we are going to see a significant shift in maybe not only the big companies, but maybe it's more 65% of the population. Companies are going to be more skill-based hiring, less focused on, the last job that you did in the last 4 jobs and what's on a job description. And they're also going to be hiring more fractional. So maybe our workplace looks like 50% W-2s and
Sure.
20% 1099s and, X 30,
Agents.
20% as agents. And like,
Yeah.
how does a young person or somebody who's in the workforce now start to prepare themselves for that? And part of that, I think, is finding some element of your own company, freelancing, finding multi-stream revenues so that we're not reliant on the employer as our everything. And that
Yeah.
leads to a lot, right? Like, what about benefits and the impact of that? But I
Sure.
just think like a place where you can have some sense of, if I worked for Oracle for 30 fucking years and I get an email in the morning or a text message that says, hey, you're no longer employed, like, that's devastation. And I can't in my right mind understand how that process was at all vetted by somebody who gave a crap about humans and the way that they have committed their lives to organizations. It just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's when we joined the workforce. Listen, the leverage was on the employer side, no doubt. When I came into the workforce, and usually, and this is one of the things I studied with my book on Gen Z, was the customs that they had come into. Like our customs, or at least mine, in a generalization, was that you get what you get and you don't get upset like that. And also, like, media was an impact back then, and you would see Michael J. Fox go from the mailroom to like the CEO's office in one movie, that kind of stuff. Or Tom Hanks, owning a toy company, whatever, and big. Like, so there was always this like upward trajectory that, if you worked hard and you did certain things and got lucky, you'd become CEO, and that was always a goal. But you're right. I mean, I think historically, especially when I researched for the Gen Z project, it was, companies were very community based. So you were employed in the same place where you lived, and it was very family oriented. And we've absolutely, I think it was the 70s or maybe late 60s, early 70s, when we went to this short term reporting structure around companies, and people were incentivized for short term gains, things like that. It changed everything. And listen, again, to your point, there are companies that think of that human connection. And there's a company, Irrational Capital, that has done research that shown 7 dynamics of human capital actually create alpha in business results. So they've actually connected human capital to business results, which is what we've been trying to do in HR for 30 years, as far as I'm concerned. Like, hey, everything I do here will have a strong business impact. So it's interesting, like, we're pendulum shifting back to a place where it's more of an employer leverage market, like when we joined, but really thinking about, like, what is this? And your point is right. It's this new workforce that is full-time employees, W-2, agents, AI. Like, it's this combination of all these things. And I think that's ultimately where we're going to land. But it's still, there's going to be sacrifices that happen, like these kind of layoffs, like Oracle. And the question I have is, like, do those have, and could we tie those ill, workflows or the processes that aren't human, first, is that going to impact their business? Is Oracle going to see a downgrade in their business because they really weren't thoughtful around the human capital aspect? And jury's out on that just yet. But
Yeah.
if you talk to the folks at Irrational Capital, it's like you have to do all these human capital. Listen, you can still, and we've seen, Starlink and Tesla and all these companies, like they're traditionally not, I know somebody that worked for SpaceX as their head of HR, and like Elon Musk would never come to HR meetings, saw zero value in the HR function, but still wildly successful, right? So there are going to be edge cases where you do the wrong things around human capital and you still can succeed,
Yeah.
but hopefully there's a reckoning coming. Like, hey, if you don't.
Is there a product for us to create you know how they have all these wonderful, Jessica created Stacked, and there's a few other companies that evaluate AI tools. I'm wondering if or HRIS functions, I don't know if it's always being evaluated and it may be a pay to play, but the idea of like, here's a AI driven search function that is providing insight to candidates on like, here's what actions X company has taken over the past year in their hiring, firing, RIF decisions, and like just use this as information when you're going out to market to get a job. Like, you talk about accountability. Where is the like residual effect of Oracle laid off 30,000 people? And I bet over the next 6 months, you'll find a job board that has posts for Oracle.
Yeah.
Or Block or whatever, right?
Right.
So is there space for us? This is a conversation. We're creators, Anthony. Is there a space where we build a tool using AI, which I love, that not only shares this company had this layoff over the past 3 years, here are their current job openings. Who's holding them accountable for that?
Yeah, it's an interesting. Great minds as always. I'm a big vibe coder, and so when I have an idea, I throw it into Lovable and I start creating stuff. So I actually, to your point, I was like, are we holding receipts? Like, to your point, if you're announcing layoffs due to AI, is anyone tracking any of this?
Yeah.
So I actually vibe coded a
You already
solution.
did it.
Well, it's for me only, because I don't, I, as a head of HR, I give them credit. The gangsters at Glassdoor, but they would allow fraudulent claims on companies, but it served its purpose, right? Like it was, in a lot of cases, some of the insights that those posts would provide are true. Like, hey, we really need to have better management or better benefits, and some of it was completely false. And Glassdoor, you would have to pay them to be able to respond or do certain things. So, like, I would, my view on all of this is like, it's almost like a Ted Lasso, like whoever produces Ted Lasso and writes for Shrinking, like it's like, can we create positive change? Like, how can I don't want to hold receipts. But what I've done, and you'll see here if I can, I'll try to do what you did. Let's see. So yeah, here it is. So what this does, and you can see it's still scanning, but it'll look at AI layoff trackers. So it'll scan the internet and say who has listed any layoffs using the excuse of AI. And what it does is it scrapes all the news, and it pulls it in by month and reason categories. So we have AI-driven efficiency, budget reallocation, and restructuring is another thing. How many companies? And again, this is not. It's still scraping, and it's not like a full breadth of, and because it's only scraping news articles, like whoever posts, but you can see, to your point, right? Like, look, technology, e-commerce, like those are the main, and you can see here's our friends at Snap pulling up like, and it gives you the source of where it is, the date of the cut, what the reason was. So definitely, thinking about this and vibe coding a solution, but trying to figure out like, hey, fire, there it is, the emoji.
I know
Um,
you love the emojis.
but again, this is just for me. I don't want to push anything like this out publicly. Again, I just wanted to know, one, can I do something like this, and can I vibe code something, and would it work, and would it scrape? But definitely in that same vein, like, what are we tracking this stuff? And then to your point, like if someone posts a job, maybe you should be warned, like, hey, last time, like Klarna came out, and I think it was a mistake on their part to be like, hey, we're firing all these people because of AI, and then they hired people back. I'd be like, again, unless I really needed that job and I had no other choice, you have to sacrifice because you have to create financial stability for your family.
Sure.
I'd be like, I don't know if I'd go work for them.
I have a sense based on my students and my exposure to the, late teen, early 20 population that, and have a sense of faith that there is going to be a bit of reckoning, that the level of social responsibility, the level of, honestly, it's but just right and wrong. Like there is a sense in my students for sure of like the questions about AI. What the ethical, the ethics of AI, the responsible use, how companies are using it. And so I'm curious if there will be, I think as always, there's a push and then a pullback, right?
Yeah.
And what's both exciting and scary is that if more companies play follow the leader and look at most of those companies you listed are very well known, popular, well regarded in terms of size, scale. They're the ones that have, on LinkedIn, X, AWS, X block, whatever. Those companies are followed by a lot of CEOs that are going to say, hey, maybe that's something, but maybe there's a fire spark of hope that
Yay.
that at the end of the day, the efforts and work of diligent HR leaders all over the place saying, wait a minute,
Well,
what are
maybe we could,
they?
maybe the opposite of an AI tracker is what companies aren't doing this. So to your point, like what, there's, I subscribe and I'm a big fan of a company called Just Capital, and they do a lot of work, sort of connecting social responsibility to business results, almost like Irrational Capital does for human capital. And, what if we just profiled, like, we're seeing in the media, in my LinkedIn, I would love to see in my LinkedIn news, like, hey, AcmeCo or AcmeCo.ai, is hiring. They're balancing AI and humans, and Just Capital actually profiles a lot of companies, and it just doesn't get the same coverage that it does if you're like firing people for AI.
Well,
Like,
maybe
and to your point, there's probably thousands, tens of thousands of companies that are like, hey, I still believe in the human connection. We're kind of dabbling with AI, and we think it's like my shirt says here, look, it's robots and coffee and people. Like that's the final equation.
I love that idea. I think what we do, because here's what a quote that my former CEO at News Corp used to say, because he stole it from, I can't remember the movie with Alec Baldwin, but he did steal it. No, it's from The Grinch. It doesn't matter. But the idea of being like, if I owned this or if we led this, and we can do whatever we want. Maybe with our 10 listeners so far, we can have
Yay,
an impact. Yay, 10.
killing it.
I think last time I looked, it was 19 downloads. So woohoo, we're on our
There you
way.
go, 100% increase in
That's right.
listenership.
That's right. But maybe that's something that we do. Maybe our next conversation is really harnessed around what are the ways that teams are doing this well? What are the success stories that, I've got a great success story from a woman who used to work on my team back at News Corp. I hired her when she was literally, I think her second year out of college to be on my HR team as a trainer. She's gone on to work for some of the greatest SaaS, most visible SaaS companies, CHRO roles. And she's got such an amazing story of implementation after a problem. I shared it on LinkedIn, and I'd love to talk about that, or Bridgewater, working with them and the impact that has had on their team to just not, again, the middle ground. It's coffee, human, and technology together, where they are leveraging it to find open doors to connection within their organization. And we can make a choice through this podcast to talk about whatever the fuck we want. And so maybe
I like that.
Is let's talk about the stories that are successes and impact on the future of work, and give less time, energy, effort, and anxiety to the companies that aren't doing it right.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do some deep research, because if I look at my my LinkedIn news feed, it's more about the negative than it is the positive. So I love that. Deloitte cutting back benefits for certain staffers. I don't know if you saw that one. Like, hey, we're gonna, all you people in the back office, we don't value you, so we're gonna cut your like. And they're great. I work closely with Deloitte with the Ella project, and they're an awesome company. Like, they are really a caring, and I think they're even in like the top 5 every year in terms of like caring or people focused companies. But I'm like, ooh, is that the right choice? Anyway, that's maybe for next time. But yeah, I love the idea of maybe
next time we're talking about positives.
I love it. Positive breaking views.
What I would, if we're talking about those challenge situations, I think what I'd love to be able to do is, if there's anybody in our, like, I think it's just a lack of understanding. You hear the soundbite and you say, gosh, that's terrible. There's a soundbite out right now having nothing to do with AI, the future of work. It has to do with men and women and a CNN article. And there's a big CNN article out right now, and there's a lot of women responding to it. And I'm not going to talk about what it is, but there's a reality that if you do a little bit of research, they're claiming that 62 million men viewed something. But when you really look at the full details, it's actually much less. There was a lot of viewership on a site, but about 1,000 that viewed this very problematic, awful, terrible site. But I think there's an important perspective. Maybe it's my journalism background. That's what I graduated in. It's like a truth in broadcasting, right? Like, where we have to, I want to get a better understanding of why Deloitte would do that. What was the impetus behind saying that certain roles don't deserve to have certain benefits? And then you've got companies like my good friends at Compt, who do so much to try to understand that people are at different spaces in their life and they have different needs. And I think there's this war of offering bespoke services and helping people be viewed as individuals, and then like we're just making mass decisions across the board that feel really destructive.
Yeah. And I think you'll find, when you double click on all of these things, there are frameworks to which all of these things either have restrictions or guidance, especially around benefits, right? Like, it's all or nothing. You have to have equitable benefits in a lot of cases, where you would really, the benefit around benefits is to customize and personalize, because the value of certain benefits when you're younger, for the most part, are different than when you're older, right? So why wouldn't you be able to almost like DJ board benefits? Like, hey, we're, like, we'll still offer a la carte, but instead it's like, no. The laws are you have to offer this package in this format. Like, it's, so I think, and the same thing around why companies make decisions, it's the framework. I am going to get a short-term boost on, my earnings, on everything else. And so I never blame the people, you blame the frameworks, but, to your point, can we identify the folks that are looking at the framework and going, hey, that's not going to do well for me long term, and so I'm going to buck what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another
Boom.
deep boom mic drop. They don't have a mic
Hold
out
on.
here. I want to do a mic drop.
Wow, they have like noises too. Wait, some drums. Can I drop drums? Or I don't know what the hell that was.
Here, I'm going to try
There
to
you
find
go.
a mic. This is a slow end to a massively thoughtful. It's a mic
What is
raise.
this snake?
So we are
Oh.
still on. We thank you for joining us this episode. And this is what we are. Like, it's two friends talking about the world of work. And I think as anybody who's in HR or in leadership, these are important things we want to understand. And so I appreciate you taking the time, Anthony, with me and talking about these things that sometimes feel both not thought through well, and at the same time, like, there's so much deep thinking on so many different topics that it can become very overwhelming for anybody who's in an HR role having to try to navigate through this in their day-to-day. So
Absolutely. And instead of commenting back on your comment, I'm just going to fist pump you. There we go.
All right.
Done.
Till next time.
Cool. All right. Good combo. Great stuff. See, I told you we'd kill this.
We always kill. I love our conversation.